He's successful and prestigious. He wins landmark cases that are talked about for years afterwards. But what does someone like this have to do with someone that was born in 1971? Well, apparently everything. The relationship between these two people is a tangled web that even a master spinner would have trouble unravelling. A quick disclaimer before we dive into today's case. As you will hear, this case is still unfolding in real time, and due to this there is a ton of daily media coverage that may not be 100% accurate. This case itself is still unsolved, but that being said, let me tell you about the now infamous lives of Tom Girardi and Erika Jayne. Tom Girardi was born on June 3rd, 1939. He was born to a relatively affluent family, as evidenced by his educational career. He graduated from La Loja High School in 1957, which is in Los Angeles, California for those of you that don't know. He then got his undergraduate's degree from the La Loja Marymount University before getting his JD or law degree from the La Loja School of Law in 1964. He decided then to pursue one more year of education by attaining an LLM from the New York University. An LLM is a Master of Law degree in a specific field. Tom earned his LLM in consumer law. This extra year of studying proved fruitful for him, and the same year that he graduated, he opened his own law firm. His partner was Robert Keyes, and together they formed Girardi & Keyes Personal Injury Lawyers. In 1970, Tom Girardi went on to win the first $1 million settlement for a medical malpractice case. So today, this might not seem like a huge amount of money, but back then, this was a massive sum of money. But here, I should note something about the American personal injury law firms. It is not uncommon for them to advertise themselves to be ambulance chasers. An ambulance chaser is a law firm that actively seeks out accidents so that they can prosecute. Civil lawsuits, like everything else in the USA, is seen as a money spinner. This huge win helped Tom to really take off in his field. But back in Atlanta, Georgia, another major event was happening. Erika Renee Chajo was born to a single mother on July 10th, 1971. Despite growing up in a single-parent household, she was determined to make something of herself. She claimed that she wanted to follow in her mother's footsteps and never have to be dependent on a man. Erika set her sights on being a singer, and at the age of 18, she moved from a small town in Georgia to New York City. She started working in a strip club, and while she was there, she spent most of her time networking. She did manage to land a few small-town acting gigs, but her heart was still set on being a singer. Eventually, Erika met a man, and they would go on to get married and have a son together. As much as she preached about not being dependent on a man, Erika found herself in the domestic position that she had always tried to avoid. She was still trying to stay connected to the fame machine, and her manager and agent was constantly pressurising her to leave home and move to Los Angeles. At the time, and even still today, moving to California helps people get their careers off the ground. It's Hollywood after all, it's where dreams are made of. Around 1996, Erika decided to take her manager's advice. She divorced her husband and moved to LA, but history soon repeats itself and Erika found little success. To make ends meet and take care of her son, Erika took a job in a restaurant. At the time, it was a well-known hub of wealth and connectivity. Erika was working her magic once again to try and establish herself as a future star. But her plan wouldn't quite work out the way that she thought it would. But she was closer to ever than fame. See, the owner of the restaurant was a very influential man who went by the name of, you guessed it, Tom Girardi. He was smitten with Erika, despite their 30-year age gap. Tom pursued her, and he even had his assistant contact Erika on her personal number for a date. But Erika told the assistant that if Tom wanted to go on a date with him, he'd have to ask her himself. And he did. Now, Where did we last leave off with Tom? He was just making a name for himself in the personal injury law field. In the 28 years since, he had built an illustrious career. He was known as the champion of the people and the champion of the underdog. He and his law firm were constantly winning lawsuits for those that couldn't defend themselves. The way that he and his team operated was that they wouldn't charge a dime until after they had won the case. And then afterwards they would take a percentage of the settlement sum. So if they didn't win, they didn't get paid. In total, Tom won over $1 billion from malpractice lawsuits within the healthcare sector. It is safe to say that he was setting records. In addition to his successful law firm, Tom was the trustee at the Library of Congress, and he joined the California Judicial Council, and he was the first trial lawyer ever to do so. Tom was also heavily involved in politics as well. Basically, he was a big name with an even bigger reputation. One of his most famous cases as an attorney was representing the residents of Hinckley, California. The suit was against PG&E, which was a gas and electric company. They were accused of polluting the waters in the town intentionally. This was contamination that was being linked to cancer and other diseases in the Hinckley residents. Tom won the case, getting PG&E to settle for $333 million. This case solidified him as a major player. In addition to being good at what he did, he was reportedly a really good boss. Apparently there was major benefits to working at the Girardi firm, aside from exceptional pay. There are reports of custom-made suits, high-class parties, and even luxurious company cars being given out. But isn't this a law firm for the people? Aren't they supposed to put all of the money back into helping the victims? Well, yes and no. Depending on the case and the contract, Girardi's firm took anywhere from 25% to 40% of any settlement that the case won. Of course, this means less money for the victim in the end. But in the event that they lost the case, the plaintiff wouldn't have to pay anything for the law firm's time. Some see this as a moral issue, but others claim that it's fair because both parties sign a contract beforehand. But I'll leave it up to you to determine your stance on this issue. Erica and Tom got married within 6 months of starting to date. Erica and her son then moved into the mansion and she quit her waitressing job. For a while, she stayed at home as a housewife and a mom. Eventually though, she decided it was time to start her career over again, this time with an infusion of money from her new sponsor, her husband, Tom Girardi. Tom had always supported Erica's dreams and he wanted to help her in any way that he could. So Erica started channeling money into the finest of everything. Songwriters, personal stylists, designers, you name it. If it could help her career, she bought it. She did start to gain some traction in the dance genre, landing pretty high on the Billboard charts. Erica wasn't exactly yielding a return on the investment, but that didn't faze either of them. Tom kept on trying new ways to launch his wife's career. One way he decided to show off her talents was by screening her new music video at an event he was hosting. Specifically, the 2011 Italian-American Lawyers Association Annual Supreme Court Night. As the name suggests, it's not exactly the type of event to play techno dance music at. Needless to say, the night was all sorts of awkward after that, but that didn't slow the pair down. But at this point, I feel obligated to insert here that throughout their relationship, the pair swore that money had nothing to do with it. Tom wanted to help Erica achieve her dreams, and his money was not the reason that she was with him. But inevitably, Erica started to lose steam. But the universe gave her one last shot, and that came in the form of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. If you aren't familiar with this franchise, I'll give you a moment to look it up. Once Erica was on the show, her spending went through the roof. Her whole persona surrounded her with how much money she could spend and what new extravagant toys she could buy. Everything seemed fine. Erica's career was taking off and the show really helped her to reach a new audience. And Tom was doing what he always did, helping the people one lawsuit at a time, faithfully paying them what they were owed from their settlements. Well, at least that's what it looked like on paper. On October 29th, 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 took flight. 30 minutes later, it crashed to the ground, killing 189 people. This unfortunate tragedy was found to be caused by a malfunction in the Boeing 737. Tom's law firm, in conjunction with a law firm in Chicago, filed a suit against Lion Air. They won and the company paid out. Standard practice is that the law firm takes their cut and then the money is doled out to the plaintiff. This time though, clients kept on calling the Chicago law firm complaining that they hadn't got their payments. This was odd to Jay Eldston, the owner of the law firm. The money had been given out to Tom Girardi to dole out, and he promised to do so. But this is where things start to get shady. Jay called repeatedly for months trying to get someone on the phone, but he couldn't reach Tom or any of his associates. So at this point he knew something had gone wrong with the money, but he wasn't about to roll over and let his clients suffer for it. This is when the floodgates broke open for Tom Girardi, and his world came crashing down. Erika Jayne divorced him in November of 2020, seemingly out of nowhere. On one episode of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Erika claims that the marriage was happy and healthy. In the next, she says they are getting a divorce. She goes over the top in the next few episodes crying and complaining about how hard living on her own is. But we will get back to that in a minute. Once this case of fraud was made known to the papers, investigators started to comb through all of Tom Girardi's financial history. They realised that he has been running schemes on many of his clients, and that he was lying to hundreds of creditors. He was in debt for millions, and according to him, he only had a couple of $1,000s to his name. Like I says, this case is still unfolding, so we're not about to get all of the satisfying answers that you may be hoping for. As of July 2021, Tom Girardi has gotten divorced, all of his assets except his house liquidated, and he has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and he's even been put into a legal conservatorship. Let's break down what happened piece by piece. Erika and Tom got a divorce supposedly because Erika thought that he may be cheating on her. She says that Tom was starting to freeze her out and spent less and less time with her. Others speculate that the divorce is all a publicity stunt, as well as a way to hide some of the money. See, since Tom and his law firm are the ones that are under scrutiny, all of their assets get liquidated, but not anything that is in Erika's name. Additionally, there are laws in place that prohibit a spouse from testifying against their legal husband or wife, even though they are divorced. This applies to anything that Tom may have said to Erika while they were married. Because of these two laws, many people believe that the divorce is just a way to proclaim Erika's innocence and to hide some of the money. The exact number that Tom Girardi owes his clients is unknown, but it's a much higher amount than the cash that he currently has. So the courts have ordered that essentially he has to sell everything that he owns in order to pay the money that he stole back. At the moment, he is still living in the mansion, and it's unclear whether or not he will have to give that up. But as you will see, if he did, it would certainly go a long way to paying back some of the money that he stole. This is the part of the legal battle that Erika Jayne gets brought into, for two reasons. The first is that Erika owns a lot, and I do mean a lot, of expensive handbags, clothes and jewellery. Tom's lawyers are claiming now that they are divorced, Erika needs to return all of these things. She claims since they were gifted to her during their marriage that they are hers to keep and cannot be repossessed. The second reason that Erica is involved in paying out for the victims is that her entertainment company has its finances tangled with Tom's law firm. Supposedly, another firm loaned Erica's company, EG Global's $20 million, and that money has never been paid back. This transaction adds to the company to the list of people seeking compensation from Girardi, and it also points the finger at Erica. No one knows how much she actually knew. Some believe that there's no way that she didn't have a hand in the finances with the amount of money that she spent. They claim that to a legal extent she had to be involved. Others jump to Erica's defence and say that Tom had an insane amount of money before he and Erica was ever together, and that she had no possible way of knowing where this money was coming from. Regardless of whether she knew then or knows now, she is yet to issue an apology to the victims that can't pay their medical bills due to what her ex-husband did. Instead, Erica still stars on the reality show, treating this whole case as if it's a plot to make her more relevant. Even though Erica has moved out of Tom's house, she still lives in an apartment that most of us could only ever dream of. In one video, she even has the cheek to cry while she's alone on her 50th birthday, surrounded by hundreds of thousands of dollars of gifts. It's possible that she truly had no knowledge of what was going on, but her actions now could make up for her ignorance then. Hundreds of people have been hurt by Tom Girardi, and they're struggling to pay medical bills and funeral expenses. In one case, a man injured in a faulty pipe explosion will need medical treatment for the rest of his life, but he has been unable to pay for it because Tom stopped paying him his money. Tom had originally promised this young man that he could invest his settlement money for a guaranteed 6% return. This victim had no reason not to trust Tom, so he said okay. And now he's left without what is rightfully his. Tom's legal team is now claiming that he has advanced Alzheimer's and that he is placed under a conservatorship. Many people find this fishy, as most of the time this illness has symptoms of warning before someone becomes legally incompetent. Yet right up until the scandal broke, Tom Girardi was making public appearances and speeches. But now, due to his age, no one can completely discount this diagnosis. But many believe that it's yet just another stunt to keep him from being legally culpable. And to be honest, that's the real issue here, isn't it? Tom Girardi stole millions of dollars from victims of medical malpractice. Yet, he gets to sit in his mansion and claim to be not guilty by reason of medical defect. He is protected by his powerful status gained through his long and lengthy career. All that I can say is that white-collar crimes is a different breed in the United States. When a crime is committed by a wealthy person that hurts someone of the lower classes, everyone tries to brush it under the carpet. In fact, even though this story is still unfolding, the coverage of it is still relatively small compared to other types of cases. Unfortunately, this is the reality that we all live in. But maybe one day, the rich will be held just as accountable as the rest of us. So guys, that was the story of Erica Jane and Tom Girardi. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think of this case, and we will definitely have to do a part 2 when more evidence comes to light. As always, if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel, and I will see you all next time for another video. So take care, bye!